Well, at the same time, the Hawks are blaming IPID boss Robert McBride for setting them up to face criminal charges. 4 of their officers were caught on tape holding a senior lawyer at the SARS office hostage. Let's get a bit more detail on this. We're joined by legal expert Professor Pierre de Vos. Prof, good afternoon to you. Thanks very much for your time. So here we have it, the Hawks now turning this around on Robert McBride, saying you're the reason that we're facing these charges. Do they have any grounds on which to be claiming this?
And I think it would be very difficult to say that they have grounds to claim this. The problem is, of course, that they went to the SARS offices. They claim to have wanted to confiscate an illegal document, but in law there is, of course, no such thing as an illegal document. There are documents that you might need for an investigation, and you can get a search warrant and a search and seizure warrant if you want those documents and attach them. In the absence of that, they had no business being there and confiscating the documents, so they were acting unlawfully. The only thing is they were caught on camera, and they're now blaming somebody else for being caught out doing something that they were not supposed to do.
They also haven't been terribly forthcoming with the questions that they have to answer around this as part of the investigation. What's your assessment of their conduct in terms of answering questions around exactly how that unfolded with Flock Symington?
Well, the problem is that there are 2 issues. The one is the investigation by IPID. IPID investigates cases where the police is accused of wrongdoing. Mm-hmm. And so they are required to cooperate with IPID. IPID is supposed to be an independent body, and the police officers are supposed to, they have to cooperate with that body. If they don't do that, then they're not complying with their obligations. The other issue is then, if IPID finds that there's wrongdoing, then there must be a prosecution, criminal prosecution. The problem is, of course, who investigates this? Can one trust the police to investigate themselves in order to bring criminal charges against their own? This is quite a difficult question because all over the world, it has been proven not to be easy for the police to investigate itself and to do so enthusiastically and without fear and favour.
Prof, I must also ask you about the big story we've been following on the channel today, that is Sean Abrams deciding he's going to withdraw those fraud charges against Pravin Gordhan. Some people saying this is an example of allegations that he's been captured, supposedly. Others saying, well, this is due process in terms of what the NPA does. Someone recommends an individual for prosecution, and once it goes through the legal system, checks and balances then ensure that people who should be prosecuted are, and those who shouldn't aren't.
Well, you can make that argument, but it's a little bit difficult in the sense that the prosecuting authority head, Sean Abrams, he has the constitutional and legal authority, firstly, to drop charges once investigators make a decision to charge. Secondly, he has the legal obligation or the legal power to actually intervene in a prosecution or decisions to prosecute when it is clear that the policy directives has not been followed. One of the policy directives says you can only charge somebody if there's actually credible evidence for this. We know in this case, there was no credible evidence to start with. So why the head of the prosecuting authority then announced the prosecution without intervening when he has the ability to do so, that we don't know. Either he didn't do his job, or there was some other motive for him not acting as he was supposed to.
Is it fair to expect him to resign, or was this too small a misstep for that?
Well, I am a little bit nervous to make that claim. I would say the following. On the face of it, there are one of 2 things that happened. Either the NPA, including the head of the NPA, acted in a way that showed a monumental incompetence. Competence is one of the grounds for which he can be removed from office in terms of the National Prosecuting Authority Act. The other possibility is that he was not incompetent, but that he was swayed by an ulterior purpose. That too is a ground for removal from office, but it is, of course, for the President and Parliament to decide whether he should be removed from office after an inquiry has occurred, an inquiry that is set up by the president himself.
Having said that, Prof, he says that it wasn't really his decision to prosecute, but his colleague Tory Pistorius's. So exactly who should the blame fall on in this particular case?
Yes, on a technical level, he's correct, because he's not the person who makes the decision to charge, but he is the person who owned that decision by 3 weeks ago, saying the buck stops here, it stops with me, the head of the prosecuting authority. I am announcing here that he's being charged, and he failed to look into the matter to ask, is there actually a case here? This is the finance minister, so this is the most important type of case that you can imagine. If he doesn't get involved in this type of case, then he's not doing his job, because this is not just prosecuting a garden variety person for breaking the water restrictions. This is actually a very serious issue. So I would say that on the face of it, at least, he has some explaining to do.
Prof, thanks very much for explaining that to us. So, our legal expert, Professor Pierre de Vos.